single window clearance for real estate projects become a reality soon? This has been the biggest demand of the industry. And signals from the new government give a lot of hope that this might finally happen. The President spoke about it in his joint parliamentary address. The Housing and Urban Development Ministry recognizes the urgent need to bring about this reform. And the one person who knows how this can be done is Dhanendra Kumar, Chairman Committee on Streamlining Approval Procedures for Real Estate Projects and former Chairman, Competition Commission of India. Welcome, sir. The committee headed by you recommended single window clearance for real estate in November 2012. But it just couldn't take off. We've had a change of government. Now there's a new government in place wanting single window clearances for not just real estate but all businesses. Do you think it can happen?
Certainly.
Is it feasible?
It is absolutely feasible, and it has been done in many countries, and the government is determined.
My worry is that we are a federal structure and housing is a state subject. There are center level clearances needed. How do you marry all of this?
Absolutely. It can be done in an enmeshed IT platform. There are several clearances needed from the central government, which would include clearance in environment, clearance in defense, the heritage building, ASI and so on. There are clearances needed from the state, the town country planning, the land, power, whatever else. All these can be done together. There could be a single composite application form. Once it is filed, copies can go to everywhere, and then whoever is concerned with it can process it. What we have recommended in this report, that there should be a system of time-bound clearances. First of all, nobody knows at the moment what are the clearances needed, which are the forms, and many times you have to file in a consecutive manner. Once you obtain an approval, if it is delayed beyond a point, by that time the earlier approval is over, and therefore you have to apply afresh. It's like a snake and ladder situation. So the total time involved and the delays and everything, they ultimately get multiplied, and in terms of money means a lot. And according to a report, McKinsey's...
Would you agree that developers, when they claim that, because of approval delays, their cost of project goes up anywhere between 25 to 40%, is it that high?
I won't entirely agree with that. Many a times I think it is just inflated.
Exaggerated.
But certainly it's a huge cost.
Right.
And ultimately all that is passed on to the consumers.
Yes.
Nobody does it himself. So the poor helpless consumer ultimately has to bear the brunt. And therefore, if we streamline the approval procedures, which has been done not only in smaller countries like in Singapore or Hong Kong and elsewhere, but in many other countries around the world. And in India, I'm sure, with the new government led by Mr. Modi and all the various initiatives which are being taken, and the President's address, as you rightly pointed out, a number of things have been mentioned. I'm sure it's going to happen. They have talked about 100 new cities, for example. They have talked about the low-cost housing project. They have talked about that in the year 2022, when India celebrates 75 years,
for everyone.
Housing for everyone, and so on.
So explain to me, sir, that something like environment and impact assessment, EIA, which is also becoming a huge bone of contention, how do you streamline that on one end and then combine it from, let's say, a state level or a local level town planning approvals?
Absolutely. This is perfectly doable. First of all, you have to clearly identify which are the kind of projects where you need to undertake environmental impact assessment. For example,
do you need it for residential projects,
you
which
do.
developers have been asking?
For the bigger projects you do, but for smaller projects, for low-cost housing, for the EWS, economically weaker sector. By the way, 95% of the shortage in the country, in this kind of and the shortage is huge, 18 million dwelling units and so on. So if we were to eliminate the need of environmental clearances for these projects, in fact, they should be given a certain special dispensation, maybe infrastructure status, maybe low-cost financing and stuff like that. Similarly, in many other, up to a certain story of certain heights, there should be no need. Why should there be any need?
So you're saying even streamlining the number of approvals is important?
Exactly. So in my report, I have recommended 6-pillar kind of a thing.
Okay.
There should be a compendium of all the approvals which are needed. So far, not many people know. In fact, even the town...
every developer must have a standard list of approvals that he needs. It cannot change from state to state.
Exactly. If you engage a town planner, even he does not know how many approvals are needed. So the forms should be standardized, and to the extent possible, there should be a single sort of composite application form. So compendium of all clearances needed. Secondly, there should be, to the extent possible, streamlining these clearances which are needed. Many of them have become absolutely outmoded. Just throw them out.
Yes, you say that in your report very strongly.
Yes, just throw them out. Only those, in fact, in my other report, which is unrelated but slightly related, National Competition Policy, which again this committee I was chairing, I have recommended that government should undertake in all the ministries a close review of all existing regulations, rules, systems, procedures to see whether the cost and time involved in compliance thereof is commensurate with the benefits to accrue therefrom.
Yes.
And if it is not, then throw them out. I mean, what is the point?
In your study, did you find, I mean, again, I'm just asking these questions because there's also this belief that because of the multiple levels of clearances required, there is a lot of graft money which flows in the system.
Absolutely, it does. Everybody knows it. And people
and that can also be done away with.
Absolutely. A lot of rent seeking will go if there is a complete transparency.
I like the word that you've used, rent seeking.
Absolutely. If there is transparency, I mean, at the official level or the political level and so on, the need of any seeking favors would go. And I've also suggested therein that there can be a number of other reforms also. For example, there is need of training, of capacity building of the officials. Right now, they don't know how to.
That's our biggest challenge, sir. Capacity building at municipal level is a huge, huge challenge. So tell me, I mean, if it had to get implemented, where do you think the push should go? Should it go from the housing ministry at the center?
Yes.
Is that where they should be spearheading this?
Ultimately, it is to be done in the states. But if it is done, right now the mood is there. The mood is extremely optimistic.
And you can't let this slip through.
It can't let, we should encash on it. Right now it is like one of those Swaraj, Independence Day, when everybody wants to contribute. Everybody is so optimistic, hopeful.
And charged up.
That we should do something. So why not encash on this present mood of optimism?
So developers saying that it takes up to 1 year to get approvals. Your report says about 196 days. Wherein lies the truth?
Well, it depends again from state to state. I was also executive director of the World Bank, by the way, before I joined as chairman Competition Commission of India. And every year they conducted this report, the ease of doing business and so on. India always used to be 130,
somewhere at the bottom.
133rd, 132nd out of 185. In the construction permits, India was at 182nd out of 185, by the way.
So it is tough.
It is tough.
It is tough. All right.
Undoubtedly.
Now, the one thing which I really wanted in reaction from you, developers say, okay, delays happen because of approvals not coming to us. The costs we could slash down by about 40% if approvals come in time. But from a consumer point of view, do you think he will get the benefit? I mean, so far, and you've been part of Competition Commission of India, recently written a very, very interesting article in Financial Express, which talks about how one-sided the buyer-seller agreement is. And how do you change something like that?
Very interesting question you have asked. There is a term called contra proferentum. It's a well-established jurisprudence principle that if anybody offers in an agreement unfair terms, then in a situation like this, those terms have to be interpreted against the offerer. Now, in these kind of situations, those terms are written in such minute and unreadable kind of a format that as a buyer, you may not be able to notice it, and you just go see a sample flat, you like it, you sign it.
So should we not be giving developers single window clearance only on the condition that this part also gets sorted out?
Absolutely. The CCI had drafted a model agreement for this on asking of Compad. It's unfortunate that that didn't go through ultimately. In this article which you have referred to, I have recommended that all the states in their terms of licenses to developers should ensure that this is mandated.
Wow.
If there is a fair agreement between the developer and the buyer, then a lot of problems. Ultimately, they have to imagine a situation that if you are a flat buyer from DLF, for example, then you got a relief from CCI.
Because you're a dominant
for all
player.
others, they don't have any relief. They have to go to consumer court. So for the same terms of conditions, if you can't get anything, what is your relief? So what I have suggested, rather than having protracted litigation in the consumer court, let the states take it upon themselves that in the terms of licenses of the developers, these terms are built in. And this would be fair to everyone. And the real estate sector is such an important sector for the country.
I'm glad
in terms of contribution to
contribution.
GDP, in terms of employment generation, and as the President's address says, 100 new cities and all that, it needs a big push. And the other factors which would be needed, as I said, capacity building, but also in terms of construction materials, the cement, the steel, and so on and so forth.
So the list is long. Unfortunately, sir, we'll have to wrap it out here. But it's been so interesting to get you on the show and just have this entire 10 minutes dedicated to understanding what your perspective of real estate reforms is in the country. We hope to see more of you on the show, sir.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. My greetings to your audience.
So that's the solution. Single window clearance should come. But here's Mr. Dhanendra Kumar saying that it cannot come without also implementing a model buyer-seller agreement and states making it incumbent before they give licenses for development to have buyer-seller agreements which are fair to both parties. Well, we keep hoping to bring you such interesting discussions and viewpoints.